Time Warner Cable is pleased to be an underwriting sponsor for Carolina Week.
Coming up on the January 29th edition of Carolina Week, we follow a group of UNC students all the way to Washington as they protest the war.
I'm Carla Babb. I'll speak to Congressman David Price about what's happening on Capitol Hill.
In sports, women's basketball already topped Tennessee and UConn. Maryland was next on the hit list of the nation's elite.
Mallory Nichols will have your 4-day forecast.
Carolina Week starts right now.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
Hello and welcome to the Monday edition of Carolina Week. I'm Kate Schoen.
And I'm Alex Villarreal. Thanks for joining us. Many people have strong opinions about the war in Iraq. On Saturday, some of them gathered in Washington to protest. Reporter Jaime Zea has
What do you say? How many kids did you kill today? People of Iraq's under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back.
It's a complex issue, but we have to bring the troops home. We don't belong in Iraq. We don't belong in this war. We cannot solve the problems of the people there, and we need to pull out as soon as possible.
Tens of thousands of anti-war protesters descended on the nation's capital Saturday, calling for an immediate end to the war in Iraq. There were plenty of Tar Heels among them. The UNC chapter of Students for Democratic Societies brought 40 students to protest. In addition to taking its cause to Washington, the group has a plan at home as well.
We're organizing youth on campus and we're building a really strong movement to oppose this war, and it's not any longer that we're going to just stand by while this war is waged in our names.
Our country is pursuing a new strategy in Iraq, and I ask you to give it a chance to work. And I ask you to support our troops in the field and those on their way.
That's exactly what these protesters don't want. They think any escalation is a mistake and hope the Congress, now controlled by Democrats, will listen to what they have to say.
We want money for education and jobs, not for war and occupation.
Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jaime Zea, Carolina Week.
Many of the organizers of Saturday's protest are calling for a national day of protest on February 17th. Some UNC voices rang out in Washington Saturday, but there are other voices to be heard. Many students on campus still support the war. Some students even say anti-war protests are misguided and sometimes very personal.
March on Washington, and a lot of the attacks are at Bush. It's not at Congress, because you have to remember that it was Democrats and Republicans both wanted to go to war.
Well, Iraq has certainly been on all of our minds lately, and especially on the minds of our elected representatives. Reporter Carla Babb is in the studio to tell us about her meeting with Chapel Hill's Congressman David Price. So, Carla, what did Congressman Price have to say?
Kate, Congressman Price is the recently elected chairman of the Homeland Security Appropriations Committee. This is a huge job, and he'll oversee a large budget.
Price will be working with a lot of money. And not just the amounts of money you and I see every day. Price will be funding the 22 agencies that came together in 2002 to form the Department of Homeland Security. But Price says he has a plan to manage all this bureaucracy.
So we're going to start out with hearings about the department-wide functioning issues, some of the managerial issues, some of the financial questions about management, and then we'll quickly go into the Coast Guard, the Customs Agency, Immigration, Transportation Security, FEMA, Emergency Management, just that full range of functions. So we're going to have a very busy spring.
Price's Appropriation Committee has many responsibilities. However, he's most passionate about immigration issues.
We need comprehensive immigration reform. And I'm not the one who's going to be presiding over that. This is not my subcommittee's jurisdiction, but it certainly is something that I'm interested in and going to be involved in. Yes, we need to protect our borders, we need to enforce the laws, but we also need policy that works in terms of our labor market needs. So we're going to need a guest worker program, I think, and we're going to need some way for people who have been here a long time on a case-by-case basis who have proved their worth to work toward legal status.
Do you have any sort of plan for immigration, and how are you going to focus that in North Carolina?
Well, my subcommittee's focus on immigration is on funding the immigration agencies, and we will pay attention to the need for a modernization of the immigration agencies, for good information systems, for adequate local offices, and that's of course very pertinent because we are going to get a new immigration office in North Carolina, in Raleigh.
The new Raleigh office will be very convenient. When it's completed, people won't have to go to Charlotte or Atlanta, the two current immigration offices now closest to the Triangle.
Thank the gentleman for yielding.
Aside from our state's needs, Price also wants the House to reform Iraq war policies.
This has been a serious foreign policy misadventure. I've insisted for a long time that the President owes us an exit strategy, owes us and the world a declaration that we don't have permanent military designs on Iraq, and owes us a plan for drawing down our troops and turning Iraq over to the Iraqis to defend and govern themselves.
Price says although Congress can't micromanage a war, members do have the responsibility and authority to hold the president accountable.
So then, Carla, what could that mean in the future?
Well, Price says it might mean attaching some conditions to future funding. And he says it will certainly mean oversight and investigations of what's wrong in Iraq.
Thanks, Carla. Carolina Week will stay in touch with our national representatives and give you updates throughout the semester.
A clinical professor at UNC is facing indecency charges in Atlanta. Police arrested Dr. Hugh Tilson earlier this month in the Atlanta airport. Police say Tilson was masturbating in the restroom while watching other men urinate. Tilson has won multiple awards for his work at the School of Public Health. He's due in court next month.
Carolina students are facing yet another tuition increase. The Board of Trustees approved the hike late last week. Here are the details. In-state students will pay $250 more. Out-of-state students, $1,250. And graduate students, $500. The tuition hike will generate nearly $6 million next year, with 64% of that going to faculty salaries and most of the rest going to student aid. The UNC System Board of Governors has to give final approval for the hike to go into effect. The UNC admissions office is still feeling the sting of a major mistake last week. The university accidentally notified 2,700 high school seniors that they'd been accepted to UNC. Admissions hadn't even reviewed those applications yet. Director of Undergraduate Admissions, Stephen Farmer, explains the error.
But in effect what happened is that we sent an email that we'd intended for first deadline students who'd already been admitted to second deadline students whose applications hadn't been reviewed yet. Right, so as you can imagine, when this message went out to students, they were confused, some of them were disappointed.
Staff members noticed the problem right away and killed the email, but not before it reached nearly a third of the intended recipients. The admissions office immediately released a statement apologizing for the mistake.
As their college careers come to an end, some UNC seniors want to make sure they get all they can out of the party life. Students lined up outside Players for senior night on Thursday. They came to enjoy the start of their final semester. Besides bonding, the students also raised money for a good cause. All proceeds from the cover charge went to Habitat for Humanity. Senior class president Meg Peterson says the goal was to bring seniors together.
Cohesion between the senior class. As the last semester of college, we just want to have something fun, something all the seniors can come out to and have a great time.
The night kicked off a series of senior events. The upcoming events will include an alumni networking night, a financial planning seminar, and a 100 days left until graduation celebration.
Well, with all that partying, it's usually the seniors who miss class.
But one junior's head is still spinning from his early semester trip around the globe.
I'll have his story coming up.